Welcome to another episode of The Litter Box, a Detroit Tigers podcast, with your hosts, Bill Patterson and Chet West. My name's Chet West. I'm your co-host. I'm with my pal, Billy Patterson.
Billy P. from the D.
From the D. We're going with that. Okay. All right.
We're here
That's
to talk
interesting.
Tigers.
We're gonna give a little a look at the season here today. Maybe do a little recap on 2024. Talk about our biggest surprise player from last year. Give you who's our Tiger for 2025, and some guys who may disappoint, which is very possible. Address free agency and kind of what happened with free agency in the past season, and then we're gonna take a look at the coming weeks in spring training and what's going on, and give you a little closing thoughts for our 2025 expectations. Bill, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's kick it off here. Let's get into reflecting on 2024. Big season. Unexpected results, I would say, in the end. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think that was the most fun most Tigers fans have had in probably over a decade, the last 6 to 8 weeks of that season. Completely unexpected.
I don't think that's a stretch.
It was an absolute enjoyment. Yes, it was disappointing losing to the Guardians. That being said, it still was a season that exceeded all expectations. And I think my overall vibe going into this is that the future looks really bright. And I think there's a lot of optimism for Tiger fans. I know we're just a couple of fans that would be sitting in the bleachers, at Comerica or the old
bleachers. Ideally recording this from the bleachers.
Or the old Tiger Stadium. That being said, this is as optimistic as I've been possibly since 2012. So I think there's good reason for optimism. There's a lot of youth still upcoming, a deep farm system. And what's there not to like about Tarek Skubal and a whole lot of chaos?
I couldn't agree more. I think that youth is everything for this team right now. I don't even care. And we'll get to the free agency and all the craziness, but that's yesterday's news and I kind of even don't care, and we're going forward. And so who was your biggest surprise from 2024?
You asked me this. When we talk surprises, I take it you want me to talk about who exceeded expectations, or can I also say who also let me down a little bit?
Exceeded expectations would be a surprise, so go for it.
Yeah, absolutely Kerry Carpenter.
Kerry Carpenter.
Yeah, and if we can get Kerry Carpenter, or if Kerry Carpenter can get more at-bats this season,
they say they're going to hit him against more lefties this time around. He kind of got the platoon look last year. So they say they're gonna serve him up against more lefties this year and see what happens. So
small sample size so far in spring training, but he's been on a tear, absolutely just crushing the ball.
That's good.
He just yesterday registered his first out.
No kidding.
Yeah,
I haven't been watching Kerry Carpenter's stats yet. I feel awful.
He went
about
a whole week where he was actually batting perfectly. So I think he went from 1,000 down to, I don't know, the high 700s. Regardless, small sample size, but he is one of the Tigers that is absolutely raking right now, and I think that's a great thing. So, I'm going to continue to say that he was a surprise. The other surprise that I would have was Colt Keith. I think was a revelation and absolutely somebody that I'm very bullish on coming into this season. And then I'd be remiss if we didn't address how great of a season Tarek Skubal had. It was an all-time Major League Baseball great pitching performance by him.
Anytime a Tiger can get a Cy Young, that's kind of that's a big accomplishment.
The triple crown of pitching.
Going back to Colt Keith, they're going to put him at first base. You see how bulked up he is now? He's huge now.
That also goes to my surprise, but this is the disappointment. I need to see something from Spencer Torkelson this year. We all need to see something from him, and the time it's running short, and I love Colt Keith being committed to the team. I love him switching positions because the big free agent signing, Gleyber Torres, refused to play anywhere but second base, so naturally Keith had to move. Obviously, there were other free agent plans attempted with Alex Bregman that didn't come to fruition. If we want to touch on that in a minute, I want to hear your surprises here in a second. Again, there's going to be some shuffling in the infield, and then we still have surprise. I guess 1A would be Torkelson, 1B for, the negative surprise. And it's not even so much a surprise. How historically bad Javi Baez was last year. He was not only a negative WAR player, but
addition by subtraction with him at this point.
At this point, if he could just get bad on ball. I mean,
I couldn't agree
but
more.
anyhow, I'd like to hear yours. Please, what were your surprises and
I think
revelations?
I'm actually kind of in the same boat a little with you. Cole Keith would be my number one, and he wasn't so much as a surprise, just a pleasant young player who's coming up and actually doing what you want these young stud prospects to do. He showed up, he hit, he played good second base. I'm curious to see what happens with him moving over to first. He's bulked up to handle kind of to become more of that like first base, prototypical first base power hitter. And sometimes these things work and sometimes they go the other way. I mean, we saw like Arizona Diamondbacks have Corbin Carroll. He tried to change his swing and his average plummeted, and he did not have a great first 2/3 of his season last year. He definitely finished better, but when these guys start to change their swing, they start to change things, I get a little worried. So Cole Keith, we'll see this year. He could either keep going and be the guy, or he can end up really, really struggling with his new role and his new expectations. I hope he does great because he's one of my favorite Tigers at this point in time. As far as Torkelson, yeah, huge disappointment. I mean, I think of two guys, like if we talk about surprises, one of the surprises last season was like Casey Mize never rounded into form. Talk about school doing everything he did. Casey Mize was supposed to be the guy. He's the one going backwards now. So Mize is literally like battling for a number 5 spot in the rotation at this point. What happens if he doesn't get that number 5 spot? Is he a bullpen guy? I mean, for a number 1 overall pick, that's tough. So I get a little worried about Mize. I get a little worried about Torkelson because they were supposed to be such a big part of the future. Starting to kind of look at other surprises. I think Parker Meadows was a guy that came out and really, especially during the postseason, that first series against the Astros, he was crazy. And what a revelation he was, and just such a great athlete. But he's hurt now in spring training, so we'll see what happens with him.
Can I talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Because I have been doing quite a bit of spring training deep dives
Fire
here.
away.
He is day-to-day, and the injury is not listed as anything serious whatsoever. So I don't think that's a real reason for
I think they're playing. I think they're
point.
playing kid gloves with him a little bit here to start things off. But
that being said, the news regarding Matt Vierling's injury could be quite a bit more significant because he is not day-to-day, and the Tigers. I use the
and he
term
was going to fill the hole
cagey.
at third, so it was like he was going to help fill
Exactly.
that hole.
Now, can I talk a little bit more about good news?
You can.
Jace Young has performed not at the Kerry Carpenter level thus far, and again, small sample size, just 1 week, but he is hitting above 500 right now, and he is error-free at third base, which is outstanding, especially if Verlaine has to go on the DL for any prolonged period of time.
And we were expecting that, right? Like we were kind of expecting.
We don't
that.
know, but
Jace Young was supposed to be a big prospect. He's a big.
Yes.
I mean, he's a big prospect. He should be. He's one of these guys we're hoping kind of steps up and fills that third base gap. I think he can do it. I really do.
Absolutely.
He showed a little something
Absolutely.
in the postseason last year.
And I would say, for what I'm looking forward to this season, to circle back to one of your earlier questions, I think if the Tigers can remain in contention within the division the entire season, just like they were last year, I do think it's a competitive division. I think the Minnesota Twins are going through a little, they're for sale. It sounded like Justin Ishbia was closing in to take majority ownership, and now it sounds like he has had a second thought on that. And so it'll be interesting to see what the Pullets do with the franchise. They're still scrappy. They're still, I think, the favorites in the division. We know the Guardians are going to be good. We know what the Royals are. A little top heavy, I think, comparatively. They're not as deep as the Tigers. They're not as deep as the Guardians. And
Sure. They're one of the best players in baseball, but outside of that, it drops off a little bit from wit.
But the good news is we still have 18 games against the White Sox. The bad news is that the other 3 teams that we're competing with also have 18 games against the White Sox.
That will always be the good news, that we have 18 games against the White Sox this season, or at least for the foreseeable future. Did you see Oscar Colas take a fly ball off the head the other day in one of the first spring training games? There's nothing more pleasing than seeing that.
Just a quick shout out for our listeners. I'm based in Chicago, a stone's throw from Wrigley Field. Chet is located in the Twin Cities. So every now and then you're going to get a little local flavor. Yes, I did see it.
Local flavor for the baseball coverage.
And boy, there's not a lot of optimism surrounding the White Sox outside of the fact unless Justin Ishbia is ownership group can maintain. They already own some of
Don't they
the
own?
White
Yeah, they
Sox.
own part of it, right? They got a
Yeah,
little
but
ownership in it.
he wants to get majority and start spending and figuring out a new stadium or improving the
I almost
facilities in
wonder
and
if that
around
isn't the
guaranteed
more
rate.
realistic approach for him, is just to go grab a piece of the White Sox, a greater piece of the White Sox, instead of where he's, I don't
Well,
know. I
that's
mean, he's been working pretty hard to get some people on board to get this Twins purchase done. But again, I don't know if they're that close to the finish line or not.
word on the street this week from Chicago Sports Business was that he's closing in on the White Sox. I'm a little surprised on that. I think there's potentially a higher ceiling depending on what happens with the stadium on down the line.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Twins Stadium's absolutely gorgeous. You and I went to
Oh,
a
yeah.
Tigers series a few seasons ago. Target Field's an absolute gem, one of the more beautiful ballparks. And one of the segments that we will do is talk about some of our favorite ballparks. That is certainly one that I would ask listeners to, if you have not visited, pick a weekend, pick a week. Minneapolis and the Twin Cities is a great city. It's a downtown ballpark. You can take public transportation there. There's plenty of food and
I think it's
beverage.
I think it's a desirable ownership position. I mean, owning the Twins is not, it's no small prize.
But you'd say they're, after the Vikings, they're probably the number 2 team in town.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
I mean, they're ahead of the Wolves, and
I don't know.
Still...
I mean, you've got you got to remember we're in hockey country here. So
True.
You do have, I'd say the T-Wolves are a very popular team right now too, just because of how they played the last 2 seasons, and they have Ant. But I would say the Twins are probably, they probably waffle between 2 and 3 there for popularity.
I guess what I'm going back to the point, there's no doubt that the White Sox are the number 5 team in this market.
It's got
distant.
to be.
I mean, and that's what
the Fire ahead of the White Sox? The Chicago Fire might be ahead of the White Sox.
That's debatable. That's another bad ownership group and a very uncompetitive MLS team.
So
going back to this, I wanted to talk a little bit about, if Vierling's out for any considerable amount of time. The Tigers are young. If they can stay in contention, let's say, first, second week of August, and then, or at least are poised to do that. Because if we recall last year, great season, but come Father's Day, almost to 4th of July, they were pretty much dead in the water, and then turned things on and really got hot at the right time. That being said, I think if we can get 2 players in particular, Jace Young on the field, everyday third baseman, hitting, playing well, and then I think Jackson Jobe is the other X factor this season. If Jackson Jobe makes the rotation, and you alluded to Casey Mize, and
they have him slotted in the number 3 spot right now. They got a pretty high spot for this kid that's coming out. This will be his rookie year. He did get a little taste at the end of last season, in the postseason, but they've got him slotted for the number 3, which is, for a rookie, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, you're sitting behind Skubal and Flaherty. So let's transition real quick.
Yeah, please.
Who's your Tiger for 2025? We start talking about 2025. What do you feel? Who's your Cole Keith of the year? Who's your,
I'm going to go with, we've talked a lot about him. And so this is a coin flip because I feel like you and I are going to be competing for the same guy on this. But I'm going to go with Jackson Jobe. I'm really bullish on.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I've got to give one more Jace Young plug. I'm really excited about the youth movement.
That's great. I think that's fantastic. So those are the guys that are going to pop for you. I'm going to give you a name that this won't be a surprise. And this is not, this guy's not a rookie, not a second year. I think Riley Green is about to etch his name in superstardom in Detroit. I think he's about to become the guy. He's going to become our guy on the team that makes everything go. I think he took a huge step towards that last year. And he's so solid. A great athlete. Defense, offense. I mean, this guy he's going to be the catalyst, in my opinion, in the middle of there. Carpenter might come in and clean everything up for him. But I think he's going to be the guy that gets on base, that hits for power. He's going to be an all-star again. I think he's going to be our all-star again.
He's a 5-tool player, and I did leave you a little low-hanging fruit there to grab Riley Green. I've got one more name for you that I bet if I gave you 10 guesses, you wouldn't say this is going to be my Tiger this year, but this is whose jersey I'm planning on getting.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Tyler Horton.
Tyler Horton. You're going with that? Okay.
He was money last year. The last 6 weeks of the year, he was so good coming out of the bullpen, and he apparently has been throwing gas thus far in spring. Again, small sample size, but I just love middle relief guys that offer flexibility, and we know that AJ Hinch is a wizard if he is allowed to, play his chaos, and Tyler Horton gives him so much flexibility.
You don't often
I
see
think
somebody
he's a
pull
very
a bullpen guy for their 2025 surprise, but that's great. That's good. Okay.
that's
We're thinking about the pen.
yeah,
We're going
that's
deep.
why I'm here.
Who do you think's
To
going to
balance
disappoint?
this.
Who's the disappointment?
Well, I mean, the obvious is I don't think Javi's ever going to find it again.
Yeah.
But that's low-hanging fruit, and that's obvious.
That is.
I, again, am not very bullish on Spencer Torkelson.
He's a soft target.
Whatsoever.
Torque,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
God, I'm pulling for Torque, though. Bias can disappear in month one, and we never have to see him again. But Torque, I really want Torque to do well.
Same. And then I guess I don't think he's going to disappoint per se, but if the injuries, bother him, and he has had injuries throughout his career, mainly in the minor leagues, Matt Vierling, I mean, that could really derail him on a very, very loaded young roster where he's needed now. He might not be needed come the trade deadline. I mean, he might find himself buried, not being able to get on the field. So those would be my two right off the top. Who are yours?
Disappointment for the season, I'm going to go with Casey Mize. I really think that this guy needs to turn a corner, and I don't have a lot of faith in the fact that he will. Again, somebody I'm cheering for, like Torkelson, but I don't have a ton of faith in him getting it done. He just hasn't shown me, even in last season, he had some spurts, and it fits in spurts last year where he did pretty well. But for a guy that had the pedigree and was drafted as high as he was supposed to be our ace by now, and really hasn't fit that mold. And some people would say, hey, he's still young, you're being tough on him. Okay, fine. Well, this is the make or break year. This is the do it year for me.
I couldn't agree more.
And I, in all honesty, what could be a disappointment for me this year is if Baez actually somehow gets his way into some weird regular role at shortstop. Like if he hits 240 and they start seeing a glimmer of things and they're like, well, we're paying this guy so much, so we got to play him. That'll drive me crazy because he's going to block guys like Sweeney and guys that I want to see getting that time, young guys. So, and I don't think any of these young guys are going to learn anything from him. His approach at the plate is awful. It always has been. He's never changed it. I mean, you and I both, Cubs fans, are team number 2. We watched him forever. And even when he was great, you were sitting there watching him going, oh gosh, he's going to do something stupid. So I'm a big fan of him just disappearing. And my big disappointment might be if he plays too much.
I hear you on that. And can I add another disappointment, even though we're kind of piling on this player now?
Let's pile on the disappointments.
Quote of the offseason / spring comes from Mr. Spencer Torkelson.
Okay.
Who, when asked about using analytics, which the Tigers have invested heavily in recently.
Yep. New GM likes that. Yeah.
His quote was, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't believe in any of that.
Oh, dear.
I'm a feel guy.
Oh, God.
And
We're
so
going back to
here
feel.
you are.
Look, I get that. He's a player. So he's going to, he is a player. And let's be honest, the numbers haven't been kind to him. The analytics haven't been great. So he's going to sit and say, well, I'm going with feel because that's what's got me to where I am. I think it's stubborn. I think, it almost harkens to, look at our guy we've already railed on, Baez. Refuses to change, does things the way he's done it because it got him there. Sometimes what gets you there doesn't get you home, doesn't get you over the hump. So I don't know. I think that sounds a little stubborn, but also maybe Torkelson's in a little bit of denial, which may give a window into his mental being right now. I don't know. We'll see.
He's also a player that I can see with a change of scenery somehow figuring it out, which is why I don't want to pull the plug on him.
Getting somebody into his head that'll kind of give him give him something to hang on. I can see that.
And Mize, I sense something similar, almost like a Rick Porcello. He goes to the right team with the right pitching coach, and all of a sudden, his career's rejuvenated. Not that
that's very possible because the talent I think is there.
Yeah,
talent's there for both those guys. It's just maybe new scenery does it. You never know.
And who knows what the trade market is. Speaking of
Yeah.
Trey Sweeney, very, very optimistic about Trey Sweeney, but he's a very young, raw player. And
Yeah.
I'm just not sure that us expecting major contributions this season, unless the injury bug really hits this team hard, which let's hope it doesn't. I don't know that this season's really a breakout season for him, but I do think the 2026 season could be a buzz. You know, we're going to be talking about Riley Green, the All-Star.
2026 already. Wow. Okay.
Well,
We're
I'm
skipping
just
right over. I
forward
get
it a
it.
little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. I get it. I see where
And
you're going. But these young
yeah.
guys will be a little more seasoned by then for sure.
Well, and that's a
That'll
heck
be
of
a
an
big deal.
infield. If Sweeney can play and you've got Torres, you know, that's your middle infield. And then seeing what happens with either Vealing or, Jace Young. Speaking of, let's talk about Bregman a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I know it's on
I was
everybody's
just about
mind.
to say, why don't we get into the whole free agency kerfuffle of the past couple months? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how the Tigers kind of handle all that. Are you disappointed that we didn't get a bigger name? Are you happy that we didn't get a bigger name? Do you wonder, are we ever going to spend money? How what's your outlook on the whole free agency thing?
My outlook is this. I think the Tigers made a very fair offer. I don't think anybody could have competed with what the Red Sox
agree with you.
and what
I can't
Alex
agree more.
Bregman signed for. I mean, he has an opt-out every season, so he's gambling on himself.
This is the new way on these deals. These guys get to be in, a certain age, a certain part of their career, and people are looking at them saying, like, well, you've already popped, you've already done your thing. Like, what are we going to get out of you going forward? And the old baseball way was pay a guy for what he did. And the new baseball way is more like, you still got to prove it. We're going to pay you for what you're going to do. And if you want to do these opt-outs after every season to try and go get a couple more dollars, fine. We'll take you for a season and fill the gap until we got a young, cheap guy that's going to come up and do basically what you're doing.
So I'm not uncertain that he still might not be a Tiger sometime in the future.
Sure.
And so therefore, I think, the Tigers made a really competitive, fair offer. I am old school. The bird in hand's always better than gambling or doubling down on yourself. The other part of it that I do want our listeners to be acutely aware of is his OPS much, much higher at Fenway Park. It is the best place that he has hit his entire career. And therefore, to get 81 games at Fenway versus he was 3 to 4 historically, just when the Astros would visit, or I guess you could also say playoff series, but let's just say 3 or 4 would be the norm for most seasons. He is, he really could rake, and maybe it is a good thing that he's betting on himself with that. Again, I think the Tigers made an effort. I do think they spent money, and let's talk about a couple of the other signings. I mean, disappointing that Alex Cobb is already injured. He is clearly the wrong side of, he's closer to 40, I guess, at this point than he is 30. And, when players are that old, I really start to have pause on, how well he can recover from that. But I think the Flaherty signing, although the national media didn't love it as much as I did, I mean, essentially the Tigers got the 2 of the Dodgers' top 3 prospects, Sweeney being one, and basically provided the Dodgers a rental for Flaherty. Flaherty gets his World Series ring and Flaherty's back, and I'm very, very optimistic about that. And so did the Tigers get the right-handed bat that they so desperately needed? No. So that's what wasn't accomplished. Did they try? Absolutely. Did they offer something that was very fair? Yes. The future will see, or, the future will unfold for what happens with Alex Bregman and Scott Boras and this plan of opt-outs. And quite frankly, if I were a Red Sox fan, I wouldn't be all that pleased with that signing, given the contract parameters. What are your thoughts?
In regard to Bregman, he does have, I believe it is the highest OPS ever with over 75 at-bats at Fenway. So he's got some ridiculous stat. Ben Verlander, Justin's brother, tweeted it out the other day. He's got like over 1,200 OPS at Fenway, which is absurd.
And that's your answer right there.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're willing to
if I'm
you...
him, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Fenway. I mean, that's a pretty friendly park for him.
Oh, absolutely. And, I do have to wonder, with Comerica being a pitcher's park, if that will affect free agency decisions. And I have to think it affected it this time. I do think the low-hanging fruit and easy, opt-out on all this would be, or the easy way to turn the corner would be, that he has these opt-outs and it was a very player-friendly contract. That being said, I'm not uncertain that 4 years from now, we wouldn't be regarding the Alex Bregman signing. Not quite as bad as the Javi signing, but as an
And
albatross for a young team.
that's what you worry about. You get caught up in the Javi signing, which I think everybody that knew Javi knew this was a bad signing from day one. I don't think anybody sat there and said, "Oh, that's a great signing by the Tigers." I think at the time it was exciting that they were spending money, but they spent it in the wrong spot.
It reeked of desperation then.
It reeked of a little bit of desperation, like they had to make a deal at the time. At any rate, coming off of Javi, we've drilled him pretty hard. In regard to the free agency stuff, Bregman is one thing. Did you hear the news about Arenado? Arenado not even considering the Tigers, didn't consider him, didn't think they were a winner, didn't think they were going to be an organization on the rise, and just completely, he has no trade clause, decided, nope, not going there, and took them off the table early. You know what? Here's what I have to say. Oh, Nolan Arenado, fine. That's fine. We're going to swear a little on the pod here, but
so I guess we're not a family-friendly pod.
I don't know if we're a family-friendly pod. I can edit that out later, but yeah, double birds to Arenado because I don't care. That guy, he's washed at this point, and I think the Cardinals were more than happy to dump him off.
I think he would already be on a one-way ticket out of St. Louis if he didn't have
if you
that.
don't see what the Tigers have,
no trade clause.
If you don't see what the Tigers have brewing right now, and you're saying, oh, they're not on the rise, like you just don't want to play in Detroit. That's all there is to it. You got some problem with it, or the whole entire thing was just a bunch of BS.
Noise.
A bunch of noise, and somebody was conjuring it up for news.
So this isn't a free agent signing because he was a free agent signing last season, and he was definitely a player that drew your ire. And I do have some optimistic news about Kenta Maeda that I would like to share with you.
Kenta.
Typically he would show, and then very, very, let's say 1950s and 60s baseball player, and use spring training to get into shape. And so he typically, like last spring training and the spring training before, 84, 85 was as high as he was hitting because he had to get his arm into shape. And he typically wasn't throwing mid-90s until late May, June. And this is an article I read in The Athletic. And he is already throwing 95 and showing up in the best shape of his life. So if he can avoid the blisters and injuries that have plagued him in the past, do I think he's going to make the rotation?
I was just about to say, does he get it to one of the 5 spots for you? Does he get a tail end of the rotation spot, or do you think he's relegated to the pen regardless?
I think the jury's still out on that. So we know we've got Skubal, Flaherty, Jackson Jobe, probably 1 through 3. Then rounding that out, we've got quite a few different options, which I have to say I'm very optimistic about that. So Casey Mize would be one of them, Matt Manning would be one of them, Reese Olson would be one of them, Kenta Maeda would be one of them.
Reese Olson's going to get a spot. I think Reese Olson's slotted in at 4. To be honest, I don't think he can lose that spot. He did so well last year. He was probably one of the best rookie pitchers last year.
Yeah,
easily. His top one in the top 4. If you don't have Imanaga and Yamamoto up there, he's almost the 3rd or 4th guy in the list.
And then we still, Alex Cobb is hurt right now, but he was signed to be a starter. Yeah, so therefore,
you're going to get what you're going to get, right?
Yeah. Actually, I liked Maeda pitching out of the pen.
I was going to say, does he make your magic middle reliever? This middle reliever that you're so fond of?
He's no Tyler Horton, I'll tell you that.
He's no Tyler Horton for you. But he could serve. He could eat some innings in the middle.
Yeah, Horton's
try to
my
keep
tiger,
the ball
man.
in the yard. As long as Maeda keeps the ball in the yard, I'll be happy. Yeah, I don't know.
You can get your Riley Green
for him, but I'll take what we get out of Maeda at this point.
You can get your Riley Green jersey. I'll have my Tyler Horton jersey. Speaking of, I don't even know what number he wears, so I need to probably do a little research on this.
Why don't you find out his number?
That'll be next pod. How about?
And I might get you a Kenta Maeda jersey just to wear it around town there in Chicago. That'll be really confusing for everybody.
I will wear it with pride. I appreciate that.
So
what's next on your list?
What do we got? We're looking at the weeks coming up here, the spring schedule. We're just cracking March. So it's only March 1st. We talk about how, Kerry Carpenter's raking, Jace Young's raking, and we got a couple injuries we're looking at, but it's so early. We got a whole month of this to go. Haven't even made it into the meat of spring training yet. We got another week or two till we see that. What are you looking for this spring? What are you keeping your eye on?
I think we've talked about a lot of it. 2 things. hoping that Matt Vierling's injury is not serious, hoping that Parker Meadows is back quickly, and hoping that Alex Cobb was a more preventative DL and that he comes back. I mean, health is going to be paramount. It's paramount in sports. It's paramount to any team. But with a young team like this that is deep but unproven, injuries could be the Achilles heel that gets this off on a tough start. I mean, the Tigers open against the Dodgers, which is no small task. You know, returning World Series champions, a loaded roster, unlike anything we've seen since probably the late 90s New York Yankees that won what would they win? They won 3 World Series in 4 years. I mean, the Dodgers are that stacked and that deep. Yeah, it's only a 3-game set, but still, we all know that starting in any sport, having a good start to the season is paramount, especially for a young team that was really hot at the end of last year.
100%, yeah.
Was depleted.
They got to start off hot. They, a struggling start doesn't, I mean, as we saw last year, it doesn't mean everything, but I'm going to throw something at you, though, on these injuries. You're going to hate this. It's going to it's going to open some wounds. But today, the Detroit Free Press has an article, Detroit Tigers mounting injuries starting to remind of ailing Detroit Lions.
I think that's
little early.
Very
too soon on all levels there.
That's a low blow, and
too soon on all levels.
If it were another periodical, I would say I expect more, but that is pretty much on brand and on par for the Detroit Free Press.
Yeah,
so
I think thanks, guys, but that's just
that's lazy reporting, quite frankly.
Lazy reporting. We'll give them the old double D bird there. All right, so we're looking at getting healthy. We're looking at moving through spring training here with no major injuries. I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of hope Vierling takes his time. It's not that I like to see guys injured. We need him too. We need him. He's good veteran presence on the team, and he's not that. I mean, he's still kind of young. But I want Young to get every chance he can at that third base position. I want to see what this kid's got. He and his brother has been injured in Texas. I think Josh Young's another one of those players that when he's playing, he's electric. If his brother Jace is anything like him when he's playing and he gets going, holy cow, is that going to be great? We're going to have a third baseman for a while. Now, do we want to ease him in? I kind of like throwing him into the fire. I know they're young. You want to see them kind of get eased in and take their time, but I would much rather see him over there than Vierling at this point.
I think the ceiling is much higher. That being said, Matt Vierling's flexibility for the fact that he can play basically the 2 corner positions in the outfield. He can play first base, he can play third base, and if he's hitting like he did the last 6 weeks of last year, is a valuable asset to have.
No, yep, you're right.
And I think we're echoing each other's thoughts on
that. Not rooting against him, just saying I want to see what Young's got. And as far as spring training goes, like the guys I'm going to watch Young. I'm going to watch Colt Keith and how he handles first base. And I'm going to watch Casey Mize and see if he can become the pitcher he's supposed to be. Those are my 3 things for spring training coming up.
I've got one more for you.
Okay.
Yeah, just a name, just to keep an eye on.
Throw it out there.
Dylan Dingler is your catcher. And my only thought is, could he somehow make the 26? He doesn't offer a great bat, but he's off to a decent start this spring. And, might he find himself in favor with one of these young pitchers and developing a rapport? Just food for thought. He's just a name that we'll monitor maybe the next 3-4 weeks. I imagine he'll be in Toledo. I imagine he won't see much of Comerica until the end of the season, if even then. That being said, he's just a name that I thought might be kind of fun for us to keep our eyes on. Any thoughts on that?
I like Dingler. I don't know that he's the catcher of the future. The Tigers have a kid that came over, I believe it was in the Flaherty deal, and his name is Theron Lorenzo. This guy is going to start creeping his way up the prospect chart, and he is supposedly our catcher of the future. We will see what happens. But he could be the prize in that whole Flaherty deal. And then we get Flaherty back in free agency, which is kind of the art of this whole entire thing.
That's free agency.
I know, yeah.
That's the win that the Tigers did.
Yeah. You got a couple of great prospects, and you get your guy back. And we still went to the postseason. It's such a weird set of circumstances, and wonder how we would have done in the postseason if we had Flaherty. Yeah, sure. but the future looks pretty bright at catcher with Lorenzo back there. And I think for now, Dingler can probably hold that spot. Or the mustache. Don't forget Rogers. I don't want to forget Rogers. I like
I'm
his
a big
mustache.
Jake Rogers fan.
So I could take Rogers and his 205 average and his mustache and his work with the pitching staff and be happy with that. Dingler's a young kid that I think could do pretty well, though. So I'll watch him with a curious eye for you.
All right.
It'll be interesting.
Are we nearing sign-off time?
I think we are.
All right.
We've made it to the end of the first pass here. Any closing thoughts looking ahead for the 2025 season, or if we beat everything to death so far? What are your expectations? What are your expectations?
Well, I did not like the Baseball Prospectus projections. I'm a little more bullish than that.
Of course you are. You're a fan.
Yeah. So I'm going to slot them for somewhere between 88 and 89 wins is what I think.
I think that's pretty safe.
I think they're going to perform better against the division this year, and I'm excluding the Southside Hitmen from Chicago, meaning that I think everybody's going to beat up on them.
Yeah.
I do think the Tigers are going to play better in really three phases. One, I think they'll do better against the Royals. They've nowhere to go but up against the Guardians. And I do think they match up pretty well with teams like the Red Sox, the Rays, the Rangers. And so I'm expecting their American League performance to be better this season. And that's just my closing thought.
I think the floor is a 500 season for me. A 500 season is the floor. I think the ceiling, though, is probably like an AL wild card. I think that's probably the ceiling. I don't see them winning the division. I think the Indians are too strong.
All right.
Excuse me, the Guardians are too strong. I'll always call them the Indians, but the Guardians are too strong. I think the Twins, if they play up to their capability, will be a tough team to beat. They got kind of a tough division. They kind of beat up on each other a little bit. And the Royals are no pushover. So you're not really outside of the White Sox. I think we win at least 13 out of 18 games against the White Sox. Better put that out there right now.
Higher.
16? What do you like?
I'm going to go 15.
Oh my gosh.
I think they absolutely clean up against them.
You're on the record for 15 out of 18. Okay.
Well, their most expensive player just got hit by a pitch and is out. So I have no optimism around the White Sox whatsoever.
So we beat up on some pretty soft targets in today's episode, the White Sox and Baez. We basically did a number on both of them.
All right. We can.
Easy enough. Got to pick. Got to pick the low-hanging fruit when it's there.
We did throw bouquets towards the Dodgers. So.
All right. Okay. Well, we're on record now, buddy.
All right.
Billy, always good talking to you, Tigers.
You as well. Till next week.
Till next week,
Tigers.
Man. Go Tigers.